what motivated you to write the book?
So, when I look at the world right now, we are living in an era of unprecedented change. 100-year-old companies disappear, and yet at the same time, self made billionaires in their 20s are happening almost monthly. What's changed is the way we're all interconnected. And when we look at what's facing the tough economies, when jobs are being replaced by robots, when office automation is going to cut white collar workforces in half over the next decade, self-driving vehicles get rid of truck drivers, et cetera, you suddenly realize that it's either the worst time or the best time, that there's a great time to start businesses, that you're one click away from a billion customers. So I've been lucky enough to spend my career working with some of the greatest minds out there, the Steve Jobs and Richard Bransons and Bill Gates, et cetera. And what I noticed was a pattern on how they viewed the world, a pattern that anyone can replicate. And so that's why I wrote Disrupt Yourself. Started by me teaching this to university students. I had two college students that the first year did $100 million. And I realized this could be taught globally. And I am humbled by the response. I love Australia. Of all the countries that it sold and all the languages that the book's in, Australia is the only one where it made it to #1. So the land down under definitely understands that it takes knowledge to thrive in the era of endless innovation.
Wow, that's awesome. Great. So I know in your work you talk a lot about solutions and sort of looking at it from a perspective of solving a problem. So with your book, what problem does it address?
So the problem that it addressed is the most basic. Most people are not successful because they tell themselves that they won't be. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So disrupt yourself is really about first taking off those shackles that are holding you back. Well-wishing people in your life, your parents, your teachers, your spouse, told you that you couldn't because they didn't want you to fail and feel bad. So in reality, you end up listening to people that gave up on their dreams. So you have a choice in life. You can work for somebody else to make their dreams come true, or you can do it for yourself. Now, I don't believe that you get to come back again in reincarnation. If you do, congratulations, you got more shots at this earth than I do. But if you only got one shot at this miracle called life, don't you want to do the most amazing things you can with your time here? And what's stopping you? So once people can understand that failing is part of the process, failing is how we learn. Most of the big successful companies that you think of actually grew out of failure. Then you can suddenly look at every problem in your life as an opportunity in disguise. And so Disrupt Yourself walks people through the stages of first how to change and do self-disruption. It's like taking a scalpel and doing cosmetic surgery on yourself. Once you realize that you can change, everybody thinks of changing the world, but nobody thinks of changing themselves. Once you can change yourself, then you can break down businesses, and we walk through all the steps in the book to see how you can disrupt any industry. And if that still isn't enough of a challenge, well, it turns out our world has some big non-business problems. Climate change, extinction of half the species, education, clean water. You can apply the same disruption principles to solving those issues. So this is my way of paying it forward. And to get on a soapbox, when you really look at the big issues from the economies in Greece and Spain and parts of Australia right now, the inner cities of the US, ISIS, they all have one thing in common. It's not race, religion, or culture. It's massive unemployment for millennials. There's 2.3 billion of them. And unless we teach the next generation how to build businesses and solve problems, governments and life becomes unstable. So that's my soapbox.
Great, yeah. So you've had a bit of success in Australia with the book. Have you had any Aussies reach out and with success stories?
Yeah, I've heard from so many readers. What's been really inspirational and surprising, which shouldn't have been surprising, but it was, is in the 21st century when people get inspired and read a book or it helps them, they reach out on social media and they send you these amazing, I could just call them love notes. As a former public company CEO and entrepreneur, you're used to your inbox being filled with problems. Every day you wake up and go, what fires do you have to put out? My inbox, I've heard from people in Australia. I've heard from people in over 100 countries, which is just, I don't understand it, of how they take a different nugget out of this and suddenly see past that wall that's been holding them back. And so that just inspires me to work harder and harder. This past month, I flew 27,000 miles in 1 month, because so many governments and so many different institutions around the world are embracing disrupt yourself and teaching this, that I'm really just trying to, help as many places as I can.
Wow, that's so awesome. I love it. So, if you want to buy a copy of the book, where should people go?
You can buy online anywhere, Barnes and Noble, Amazon. It's available in audio. It's available for your Kindle, paperback. By the way, there's no difference between Disrupt You and Disrupt Yourself. Different countries came out with different titles. It's a long story. I don't care. But it's fascinating to me. And again, the languages, Vietnamese, Korean, I mean, it's touching lives in parts of the world where I don't know enough about their local businesses and challenges, but it turns out that these principles are truly universal.